All right, this week, nothing too terrible, I hope. We're just switching gears, but I kind of want to warn you that the Linux stuff is what you're going to finish out the rest of the semester with. It's going to be part of what I consider to be the final. So you're going to install LAMP, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So the PHP thing might already be familiar to you. It's what lives behind WordPress. We didn't really cover this on the Windows side, mostly because it doesn't really care. It doesn't really mention, and all the tools should be installed for you. Well, here's the deal. On Linux, none of it is installed for you by default. So we're going to take this in pieces. So the deal with this is you're going to install it all from scratch, and you're not left in the dark here. I've got a step-by-step guide for you all the entire way. But we're going to go through it real quick, and I'm going to make sure that you're doing only what you need. So, there we go. Here's the deal. So you want to do all of this from Linux Mint. You want to SSH into your Ubuntu VM. Make sure to use username at hostname. And Linux Linux is already configured, and Apache is already installed and ready to go. So we really only have 2 bits left. So once you get logged in, head to this documentation. So DigitalOcean is a VPS, so a virtual server virtual server, yeah, something like that, provider. And all they do is they basically, for $5 a month, all the way up to like way crazy expensive a month, they'll give you a server with comparable specs to whatever you would normally buy hardware-wise. So the interesting thing about this is that they pay people to actually write they write the how-tos, basically the way that you would use one of their servers that you buy. So that's one of the interesting things. So step 1, you really just get to skip. You're going to install Apache, right? And we don't have the firewall installed, so there's nothing to configure on that. But if there were a firewall installed, you would do it like that. You've seen this page. We have already configured this page to show something else. And you won't need to find your server's public IP address because you won't have one. And then we'll just go straight down to installing MySQL. So install MySQL. One of the things that you have to do, that you really have to pay attention to, are these little yellow boxes. So you don't necessarily have to follow those, but it's good advice, right? Like in this case, it's saying you don't have to do sudo apt update prior to the command because you ran it during Apache. Well, you didn't run it during Apache because you've already installed Apache in a previous thing. So if you started at step 2, then you'll need to run a sudo apt update. So that's the deal. Pay attention to these yellow boxes because they will make a difference for you as you go on through. So once you get MySQL installed, this is one of the first things that you ever want to do with every single MySQL installation because it's going to force you to install or create a root password. It's going to force you to do password complexity type things, all that. And then you would really just need to go through. Yeah. So this is just all the questions that you're going to get. I'm not necessarily too worried about the settings that you choose here, so long as you choose some settings. And when you're done going through all of this, it's going to give you a password strength. That's one of the screenshots that I have you do, I think. Yeah, take a screenshot of the password strength. So you do have to go through that. And if you keep on going, you're going to turn on MySQL, and if you've taken the database class from Renee, these commands will look familiar. But there's really no guessing in any of this other than, like, you want to change your password to something else, right? Like, that is pretty important. But the rest of the stuff is pretty similar. This command is basically going to tell you that root has a password. I think that is another screenshot. Yeah. Password auth is enabled. Take a screenshot of the output. So that's another one of those screenshots. PHP, there's really not much to test. And what there is to test, you test at the very, very end. So install PHP and all of those additional packages. Go into dir.conf again. So that configuration file we've already messed with before. We went and put index.html at the front of the list, but now we want to move index.php to the front. We want that to be the very first file that Apache finds and looks at. Restart Apache, double check that it's running. This is for if you want to add in additional PHP modules. We don't need to do any of that, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Let me see. Yeah, and it's kind of just giving you some examples like here's how you would look at one specific package and see what it does. So you, again, don't have to do that. So you can... All right, so part of the virtual hosts you may need to do... Okay, so this one's going to be... No, we should be good. Yeah, you can skip the virtual host stuff. Yep, you can skip the virtual host stuff. The WordPress stuff will be taken care of in the next lab that we do next week. So yeah, skip step 4, and then you can go straight down to testing PHP. And the way that you do that is wherever Apache is looking, and that's going to be var www html. If we haven't changed anything, and I know I haven't asked you to change anything, so that should be the case, HTML here. And then create this file, info.php, and then inside that file, type exactly that and save it. What happens is you will directly call this, so you'll type in, Ubuntu hostname /info.php, and it'll bring up this page. This page tells you exactly how PHP is configured. This is important. So, long story short, this is important because PHP is the intermediary. Kind of like how the kernel is the intermediary between the hardware and software. PHP is the intermediary between MySQL, your database, and WordPress, your website. So PHP is super important. You need to be getting at least this page. You may not see all the same modules and everything like that in there. That's not the problem. That's not a problem. It's if PHP does not show up at all. That will get you in trouble. No PHP means no WordPress. So you have to have it installed. And then the last thing is remove that file. That file is a security risk. Do not have it to where anybody can get it. And if you do, it needs to be gone as soon as possible. You're putting that file in there to test it. Once you have verified that it works, delete that file. That's the idea with that. Once you delete that file, you're pretty much done. So yeah, I'm asking you to, oops, I've got this backwards. I'll fix that. That part right there should say info.php, not php.info. And take a screenshot of that page, and then remove that file, and then hit, and then remove that file and then take a screenshot of the rm command working. So that's really it. Get me your password strength, wherever that is. Here it is. Give me that password strength. Show me that root has a password. Go to info.php here, and then remove that file. After you're done, take a screenshot of removing that file. So now that I said that, I'll go fix that. That should be. So there's really nothing too terribly interesting happening this week. But it takes some doing and some understanding, because what Windows allowed you to do with a WPI and just a single click in a lot of places, you've got to do by hand on Linux. So yeah, we're splitting that up into two. The WordPress stuff will be our focus next week, and then getting it working exactly the way, and then going back and shearing up any other issues will be our will essentially be our final. So you can pick up a few points if you do that kind of thing. So I give you a week to go do that. Anyhow, that's really it. So if you have questions, let me know. But as for the video, I'll stop that here.